because they're making me work, and that was a lot of work last night and not a lot of fun.
You can't miss something unless it's gone, and that was the case with the fans the last year and a half. Last night, capacity, the overall feel that you had, at least going into the game. I know probably a minute and a half, everybody forgot about buildings ever being empty when the Leafs are down 1-0 to the Buffalo Sabres in the first couple of minutes, and then everything's back to normal. But what were your thoughts and the feeling going back into a capacity crowd again?
You know, I was excited. You get excited just walking into the building because it was different. It's just eerie when you go to the rink and there's nobody there and there's nobody on the street before the game, after the game, and I was ramped up last night, and I'll tell you, I've been sitting at the Olympics doing all the games off monitors and games in empty rinks, and I got to do the Leaf-Pittsburgh game, and that was only half full, and I really felt charged up to get back into a rink with atmosphere for the first time in a number of weeks, and so I was anticipating it would be at a different level last night, and you're right, about a minute in, and it wasn't at all, and it was a pretty quiet night. It was almost as quiet at the end as it was when there was nobody in the building, and that's it's not meant to be a cheap shot, but it was that game silenced everybody, and most of the people had left with a few minutes to go, and the people that stayed weren't making a lot of noise.
No. So, we've called a lot of these Leafs games this season. What is your impression of where this team is at? We sit here every day and try to pick through, well, what does this mean for the playoffs? And, it can be tough to tell what matters and what doesn't. In the big picture, what are your thoughts about where they're at and their likelihood of having a run in them this year?
Well, I'll go back to last night because I had this expectation that here's this great opportunity, and there would have been, I think, 2 games in hand for Tampa Bay, but a chance to leapfrog Florida, get into a first-place tie in the Atlantic, and I think that's what should be the priority right now is finish as high as possible and avoid having to go through both Florida and Tampa. And just to come up as flat as they have, and then you think back, they've lost to Buffalo, they lost to Montreal, and they lost to Arizona, and those are games that you put 6 points in the bank, and now you've got a cushion and you're in first place. But everybody's disappointed about last night, but this is a team that's won as much as any Leaf team in history through this point in the season, and I think they've got a lot of good things going on, but that might be one more piece of evidence for Kyle Dubas that there's still work to be done.
We're speaking with Hockey Night in Canada and Sportsnet play-by-play announcer Chris Cuthbert. Justin made a point earlier in the show, over the course of 82, you're going to hit ruts. There is that element of just maybe fatigue setting in. From your seat, Chris, do you pick up the lack of energy pretty quickly to start a hockey game?
Yeah, I thought you could pick it up last night right off the bat. And it's funny because I was watching Buffalo. Don Granato had spent a lot of time in recent days talking about his team's slow starts and to be ready at 7 o'clock, although last night 7:30, but and that his top line has, they put up some good numbers this year, Thompson, Skinner, and Alex Tuck, and yet they were not apparently starting hockey games very well. The Leafs have been great starting of late. I used the stat last night. I kind of dug into what they've been doing in the first period of late. They were slow starters at the start of the season, and going into last night, I think they'd scored like 51 first-period goals in the last 30 games, and they've scored 3 goals in the first period 10 times. But last night, you could tell almost from the first shift, and even going through everybody getting on the ice for the first time, that nobody seemed to have anything going early. And I thought that might change after Sandin tied it, but it really never changed all night.
seeing the amount of hockey you do each season, I imagine you have a pretty good perspective on, when teams have it or don't have it. Watching this season, has there been any team outside of Toronto that has made you think, okay, this is a team that has a legit cup shot here?
Well, I think all the favorites that you've seen. I'm going to go back and answer your question a different way. I think Colorado's one of those teams.
Right.
But we've seen Colorado play like that too. I mean, we saw it right in Toronto the night that they didn't get great goaltending the night the Leafs spanked them. I think it was 8-3 or whatever. But sometimes Colorado doesn't have it either. And they played a game earlier this week, I think, and I'm trying to place which team it was, but I watched the Avalanche pretty closely, and they didn't have it that night. It might have been against the Rangers, but so everybody goes through it. Everybody does. Nick, 94. Did you guys have a week or two where you hit the skids, maybe even more?
I don't know if people remember, but 94, we made half a dozen trades at the trade deadline, and there was a certain feeling like whatever we did, and we were leading the league in regular season, it still wasn't good enough. So, despite even what the scoreboard was saying on a nightly basis, there's some people that still didn't believe that we were good enough. So, we were kept guessing throughout that regular season.
Yeah, you know what, Glenn? Glenn Sather in the '80s with the Oilers. I mean, the Oilers had put up a 60-win season, and yet you're waiting to see what they did at the deadline. I remember when they brought Kent Nielsen in from Calgary, and I'll tell you what, the one practice I remember more than any skate I've ever been to was the first practice when Kent Nielsen came from the arch rivals Calgary to skate with the Oilers, and the Oilers were in high gear that day, kind of as a message to Nielsen as this is what it's all about here, and you better bring your best. So it'd be interesting to see what, regardless of last night, it's going to be fascinating to find out how much the Leafs do to try and put themselves over the top.
I'm going to date us real quick here, Chris, but you mentioned